Well, I am delighted to be back at Great Lakes. I remember when it was founded by my great colleague Bala Balachandran, and what an imagination he had to put into India a unique kind of educational experience. And let me say that I prepared a talk. I chose to use a talk that I gave in Chicago to people who wanted to know more about the appropriate talk for all of our interest in this subject. I could provoke you easily by saying that I am ready to talk about the end of marketing. Now that's disturbing because you're spending a lot of time studying it, and why should it end so quickly? We do know there have been books written. One had the title The End of History. What he meant by that was it was the end of the Cold War, and it's like now we can all be in harmony, live in harmony. So if I say the end of marketing, what I mean is the end of the old marketing. It's the old marketing was distribution, mass marketing, lots of 30-second commercials, which would put us to sleep some of the time, because if the commercial was about cat food and we didn't have a cat, why should we be interested? Thank you. So the new marketing is clearly more about the social media and the transformation of our ability to reach individuals. You know, the new term is called big data, and it's happening everywhere, where we get to know more about you, hopefully not invading your privacy so much as trying to not bother you unless you're a prospect for something that we think would improve your life. So the big hope of big data is we make offers that are relevant to you, where there's maybe 50% or more probability that you would find it an interesting offer. And of course, social media is making the difference. But more than that, the fact that buyers and customers can talk to each other about products and about brands and about companies means that the companies are in a fishing bowl, and things are becoming very transparent. And it may reach a good point in the future where no company could be a bad company. See, you could have companies that are bad in the sense of promising more than they deliver, but there was no way to tell anyone but your friend. Today you can tell the world that they are not performing. So companies will have to rise to a higher standard that brings together their performance, not just their promise. There shouldn't be a gap between your promise and your performance. So I want to use this opportunity to go back and raise this question. What is the purpose of marketing? Why do we need it? What is its role? Well, what's the common answer? The common answer is marketing is there to help us sell more goods and services. Not that the marketers do that. It's done by the salespeople and the commercials, online, and things like that. But there should be a higher purpose to marketing. And the higher purpose is to build the middle class. Now, isn't that interesting? We believe that the middle class is the foundation of a civilization, of a society. People with aspiration want their kitchen to have the latest appliances, want to be in a good car, would like to have a nice apartment or home. And much of modern marketing is about selling a dream of the good life. It's a dream, by the way, we have to figure out how to sell to the poor. We have neglected the poor. 5 billion people of the 7 billion today on the earth are poor. And marketing has offered nothing, little, very little, to the lives of 5 billion of the 7 billion people. We hope we can change that. And of course, when C.K. Prahalad, the late and great C.K., wrote his book, The Fortune at the Bottom of the Pyramid, he gave us hope that even for-profit companies can do well by creating products that are more affordable by poorer people. So that, I think, should be the mission, to spread the mobility and the growth and the taste of civilization to more people in the world. Now, there's another hidden function of marketing which isn't mentioned enough, and it is that the purpose of marketing is to create jobs. No spending, no jobs. So if we cannot convince people that we have things that will make their lives better, they then won't buy those things, then there will be no one to make those things, and we have a real problem. So when you hear someone say, I don't like marketing, I think it's intrusive, it's interrupting me, say, look, think of it a different way. Every society needs work to do, and that work comes from people who have wants and needs, and it's marketing that is the bridge between the wants and needs and the delivery of satisfaction. So that's a little philosophy. Let me start with some slides, and thank you. This is a talk that I gave at the Chicago Humanities Society, and I'll start, and it was largely about the fact that marketing has gone through some stages: 1.0 marketing, 2.0 marketing, 3.0 marketing. And someone recently told me there's even a book on capitalism, unrelated to this, but I had missed it, called Capitalism 1.0, 2.0, 3.0. So we'll look at that too if we can. I'll share some of what we mean by saying marketing is moving from products to customers to the human spirit. Sorry. Why marketing? Let me start with the beginning of, if not marketing, at least the beginning of sales. What we have here is a dramatization of the Christian Bible with the beginning of the world as represented by Adam and Eve and the snake. So who was the marketer? Yes, it seems that the persuasive one was the snake who talks to Eve and convinces Eve to convince Adam to have an apple, which was from the tree of knowledge, which meant that they had to leave their garden, and now they're spoiled in the sense. They're no longer innocent, and knowledge has that effect of making us into other types of people. Now, actually, the idea of persuasion, which is very much an intrinsic notion in marketing, was worked on by a lot of philosophers. Of course, the best treatment was by Aristotle, the famous Greek philosopher, who really, in all of his writings, but he wrote about politics, he wrote about economics, he also wrote about rhetoric, the art of persuading someone to do something. And he talked about what characteristics of the speaker will have an impact on the listener. The speaker's power of stirring emotions, of gaining credibility, and so on. I'll leave that for you to research further, but let's take some other early signs of marketing's beginning. So I could ask you normally in a test, what was the first department store ever in existence? And I'll give you the answer because we don't have time for test taking. The Mitsui family in Japan in 1650 opened the first thing that we could call a department store. And by the way, the Mitsui family is still around, so it's one of those very rare, long-lasting, long-living companies of over 500 years. The first newspaper appeared in England in and it was for coffee. First advertising agency began in 1869, and it's still around, N.W. Ayers, although it's been assimilated. First brand name was Pear's Soap, instead of there being just plain soap, Pear's Soap. First laundry, first packaging, because soap was not packaged. Soap was originally soap without any paper on it. That appeared later, and the first marketing research department appeared in 1911. When people ask, how old is marketing? It's 100 years old, basically. It wasn't around. Markets were around, right? You can go in the Middle Ages and see people gathering once a week with some goods to sell. They would sit on the street or on a carpet. Markets is an old idea. But marketing, which suggests action in connection with markets, marketing is to act with markets. The first books with that spelling, marketing, were around in 1905, and they were written by economists. And the economists who wrote those books were unhappy economists. They felt that economics was always talking about demand and supply, but never knowing the real marketplace. Because, you know, a price is not only set by the manufacturer, it's set by the distributor and then the retailer. And then there are jobbers, there's advertising, salespeople. Economics, which is the science in which I was trained, never talked about the market world, the world of institutions and dynamics. So, and that began our books on marketing. When I wrote my first book, 1967, I wrote it in a different way than most of the marketing books had been written. Most of the marketing books had been descriptive and prescriptive. They described what a jobber does, what a salesman does, and what they should be doing, but it wasn't empirical. It wasn't based on a lot of scientific thinking. Like if you ask you would like to put this question to a company, what is the optimal number of salespeople you need? Well, that question wasn't in the textbooks. It was more like, we need some salespeople. But we were beginning to join quantitative methods with answering, what should I spend on advertising? And so on and so forth. So my book's purpose was to bring economic science, quantitative science, social science, and so on, blend them in such a way that students would see the drama of the marketplace. And that's summarized by this slide. But I want to say that as we explain marketing to people, we have some early heroes, of which you see their pictures, and you probably can't tell who anyone is. And yet they were so important to the development of the field. So I can give you this. Ernest Dichter was a motivational psychologist who got us interested in consumer behavior. How do people make choices when they see many brands and so on? How do they choose? And he was influenced by Freud. So much of his work was he would interview about 10 people deeply, lots of questions, trying to get to their unconscious. And he would then propose a brilliant insight as to why people don't like prunes, all kinds of questions. So he was considered a head shrinker type. He was into the head of buyers. Along came Alfred Politz, who didn't do that. He wanted to understand customers from the point of view of statistics, their ages, their income, their segments. So he was basically a survey researcher. So he didn't go deep into the head, but he could count a lot of, he could give us the size and characteristics of the market. Then along comes Julius Rosenwald, who built this wonderful new idea of of Sears. Sears was a store in the United States that would sell everything through catalogs. And it also ran department stores. But if you were a farmer, you would see their big catalog and you can order things for your business or for your personal attire. And then we had Lester Wunderman, who built the field of direct marketing. So if you get some catalogs mailed to you, or you get direct mail things, or you get phone calls, what we call telemarketing, the whole field of directly going to a specific person with an offer. David Ogilvy, one of our very best advertising people, and he wrote a wonderful book you should read called Confessions of an Advertising Man. It's not that he's done anything wrong to do confessions, but he wants to use that title to get you interested in reading about what was it like to be an advertising person. And then Stanley Marcus, who was the guru of department stores, the whole idea of that kind of institution. Neiman Marcus is the famous store we have in the United States. And by the way, I had the feeling that department stores are on their way out. They're a declining retail form. But that was based on my U.S. experience, because with our big Walmarts and our big, what we call stores that represent one thing like sports equipment or pets or something, the department store is having problems. But when you go to a lot of countries, I was just in Bangkok, and Bangkok's, that department store is buzzing with people. You go to Japan, the Takashimaya and Mitsukoshi department stores, very much alive. So you can't say that any retail form universally is either on the up or on the down. Then we have the father of public relations, because, you know, marketers should also be good at public relations, and Bernays was the one who started that. And finally, some of you may know this person, who is Dale Carnegie, and wrote the famous book on how to win friends and influence people. It's still a classic, although it's about 30 years old. You have to read it if you're going to be a salesperson. And so those were some of our early contributors. Now, what really created the field of marketing was that the salesmen were too busy there were always salespeople, but they were too busy to do certain things. They wanted someone else to do these things. The first thing was the salesmen were not going to do consumer research in a formal way, so they wanted to hire a marketing research person to do some understanding of the customer. And then they wanted someone to give them the leads. A lead is someone to call on because they may have an interest, but they don't want to just knock on doors. They would like what we call hot leads. Oh, that person's ready to buy. So we needed another person who knew how to generate leads, find out prospects. And then the salespeople didn't want to make the brochures or the ads. They don't have the skills of doing that, so there was interest. So in these cases, the sales department of companies actually hired some extra people to sit in the sales department. There was no marketing department, to help the salespeople. Well, that soon became the marketing department. In other words, instead of just three activities that were outside of direct selling, you put together some more things. And now a modern marketing organization, certainly for Unilever, Dunlop, and any of the big companies, we don't even call the leader of that marketing the vice president of marketing. We've changed it to the chief marketing officer. And the reason is that the word chief means people involved in running the company. So there's a chief financial officer, a chief information officer. And so basically, finally, we now have a chief marketing officer. Good, thank you. A chief marketing officer, which is our new name for the marketing vice president. But it means that he sits with the other chief officers to develop strategy. We have brand managers, category managers, market segment managers, distribution channel managers, database managers, internet managers. So in a big company, we may find a pretty big department, never as big as the sales force. Sales is much bigger, but these people exist to facilitate selling, to help this more selling take place both through the sales force and also through the 30-second commercials and things like that. Now, what's the quality of a marketing department? I mean, which one would you like to work for? If you can work for Unilever or Coca-Cola or something, what makes a good marketing group? A lot depends on the head of the company, the CEO. There are many CEOs who don't know much about marketing because they really came through engineering or law or finance or accounting, so they have a limit. And when it's very limited, I call them a 1P marketer. Remember, there's 4 Ps: price and product, price, place, and promotion. But this is the kind of person who says, "Get me someone to do some advertising." Now, that's a really reduced view of the power of marketing. I'd rather work for the 4P marketing CEO, because he will or she will say, "Get me a person who can prepare a marketing plan that describes our products and what is special about them, sets the prices on the products, and tells how they're going to move through place, the channels of distribution, and how we're going to promote." So I'd rather work for that CEO. Even better than that CEO is the one who says, yes, not only 4 Ps, but STP. I don't think I want to go after the mass market. I want to know the segments. I want to be owning certain segments by doing the best job for those segments. Maybe I'm going to sell to women only, or I want actually women between 30 who are married and have children. I have a product for women who are married and have children. So segmentation, targeting, and positioning is even a more evolved sense of marketing. And then the most evolved sense I call ME marketing, which Procter & Gamble claims. ME stands for marketing is everything. Marketing is everything. It's a company that is thoroughly driven by the marketing and customer idea. I mean, everything they do, what is the impact on the customer? Who is the customer? How do you please him? How do you win the customer? So that shapes a lot. And then if we go a little further and ask, what does the CM do, that's the Chief Marketing Officer, or the old Vice President of Marketing, certainly should represent the voice of the customer to his colleagues. He should say, here's what customers think. He or she should say, here's what's happening to the market. It's changing. Customers want something different or something more. That person should be watching the brand and building the brand. That person should be bringing in new technology for marketing. And I mean, marketing is becoming very technical. You could be on either the creative side of marketing or the technical side. In fact, we have from Great Lakes, you have an annual program called Analytics, where you are one of the leaders in inviting those marketing experts who know how to get measurement tools, how to use factor analysis and cluster analysis and discriminate technical statistical things to get customer insight. And you want the CMO to also look at the portfolio and say, you know, we got some dead products, we better get rid of them. And we got other products that need more money because they're our future. So that's another task. Another task, and a big one, is to answer the question of the CEO, what did I get back for my marketing investment? And the answer is called ROMI, marketing return, well, it's the return on marketing investment, basically. And that's not easy to measure, especially with the new media. How do you measure Facebook's contribution and Twitter's contribution and so on? But there's a lot of work being done there. Now, I want to say that another aspect of marketing for those of you who may not want to get into marketing soup or marketing soap, which we call consumer marketing, there's a lot of things. We call it the broadening movement. I've been a major part of the wish to make marketing be known to everyone and for everyone to realize they're doing marketing all the time. They're marketing themselves. If they meet a woman they want to marry, they have to market themselves to be interesting enough to her, and vice versa. And when you want to get a better job, you are one of 20 people applying for it. Obviously, you're going to come dressed well, you're going to be prepared. So we're always, marketing is universal. Look, economics is universal, but marketing is a different mindset than just economics or finance. It's a different mindset. So we distinguish between commercial marketing, place marketing. Maybe some of you want to help a city or a nation be better known, to get more tourists, to attract more investment. Wonderful field of work. And then person marketing. Maybe you want to be in Bollywood and you would like to create some stars or singers. You want to help people who have the talent become more visible, better known. I wrote a book called High Visibility on that subject. Social marketing. We want to help people not smoke because it's not good for them, not take hard drugs, to eat better, to exercise more. All of those causes we call social marketing. Would you know, do you know that there's about 2,000 professional social marketers in the world now, well trained to help with selling a cause, changing a behavior that is better for people. And then there's political marketing, which is getting very sophisticated, and but I won't mention more about that. And then fundraising, all of that. Now fundraising, what if you want to be in a museum and you want to help the museum be successful? You need to be able to attract visitors. You need to be able to attract donors who will contribute money, to attract government support. There's a lot of marketing jobs in just a museum or a theatrical group or whatever. So that's broadening. And I'm going to say that that's the good news about marketing. Now there's some bad news. There are opinions about marketing practice that we have to answer and reduce these practices. That marketing is intrusive, it interrupts us. The pop-up ads, the ads on shows that we're watching on TV. Sometimes we say it exaggerates. So the famous story about the cosmetics company saying that in the factory we make cosmetics, in the store we sell hope. Yes, that's true, and that's an insight. That's a brilliant insight that people are there to believe that that skin cream is going to make us more attractive and draw more people to be interested in us. There's going to be some of that, and there should be, but it shouldn't be lies, complete lies or things like that. We don't like hard selling or pressure selling. We often talk about soft selling and no selling as a selling approach. No selling is where you don't do anything and yet they know you're getting so many customers and you say, I'm not sure we can serve you. And they get more interested in being served because they want to get into the club that is there. We have a practice called buy now, pay later. And I'm upset with that practice because it caused the financial collapse that we went through. People wanting a home, buying it for only 5 or 10% down, and then they lose their job. And then they have to, the home has to be foreclosed and taken away from them and so on. Why? We want everyone to have their dream, but they should have enough capital. Maybe such a person should be in an apartment, not own a home. And an apartment can be quite a nice thing without, where you can afford the monthly without having the capital to buy a home. Planned obsolescence is a complaint that, although we love it, you know, if you have the iPhone 1, now you because there's the iPhone 5, and that's a better camera, and it works faster. So what do you want to call that progress, or do you want to call it planned obsolescence? It depends on your political point of view. And then the problem of overchoice. We get so confused by so many deodorants, so many shampoos, and how do we even make a choice? Sometimes people walk away from buying a product because they can't even decide which of the brands they should be buying. Those are some of the issues, and those issues led to a number of critics of marketing. Ralph Nader is probably the best one, and he criticized some of the automobile manufacturers, particularly Ford Motor, by saying that they were making some cars that were really unsafe. And General Motors too, and then General Motors sort of followed him, and then we learned about that, and we embarrassed General Motors for spying on him to actually cut him down to size. And so he became famous because he was spied on by General Motors. But he's quite articulate. Rachel Carlson was this wonderful woman, naturalist, who told us about pollution. She awakened us to what's being thrown in the water, dumped in the water. And her book was called Silent Spring. Vance Packard made a career of charging us with the ability to manipulate people. So it's like he had the image that when you go into a movie theater and you don't want to buy any popcorn or anything, suddenly the ad, there is on the screen, you can't see it, but subliminal ads that actually make you thirsty and hungry, and you go before you're finished and you ask for popcorn. Well, that's never been proven that there are such subliminal ads. But he called it in his book The Hidden Persuaders, and then he says marketing tries to make you not only surpass your neighbors, they make you want to be admired for your consumption, that you can afford a better car than they can, and so on. So a lot of attributions were made about materialism, and it's driving us rather than we're not really leading the good life, but we're being driven by accumulation. Then John Kenneth Galbraith brought out a very interesting thing. Here we've got a good private sector, and we have much choice. We can buy one of about 50 different kinds of automobiles, but when we drive the automobile, we can't get anywhere because the roads are congested. The public sector isn't supporting the private sector. In other words, the infrastructure, which should be supplied by the public, is not up to the level of our wealth as a The Affluent Society was his book. Then Naomi today wrote a book called No Logo. She doesn't like brands. She thinks branding is making us pay more money for the same thing. A brand is all about building a preference for that name and institutional supplier, which may not end up being a product that's any different than any other commodity. And then there's Michael Sandel, who is a very popular Harvard ethics teacher. In fact, his classes always have 1,000 students. He has that big auditorium, and he raises questions about morality. And his recent book, What Money Can't Buy, he is trying to put limits on marketing. He says, look at the old days when we used to watch a baseball game in the United States, and I might have a seat, and next to me is a very wealthy man, I don't even know it, but we all were equal. We all went to watch the baseball game. Today, all the wealthy people are up there in a skybox, it's called, and they're being served steak while they watch the ball game, and they have nothing to do with us. And he says, the skyboxification, he calls it skyboxification of America. The kind of classes are growing more distant. By the way, one of the real problems in many societies is the distribution of income and wealth getting more and more concentrated, which is going to be suicidal for an economy, because if there isn't available purchasing power, then the rich can't really make much money anymore. There won't be markets to sell to. So if you watch what's happening in Europe, Europe is beginning to put ceilings on things, like they say that bonuses paid in their banks should not be more than 1-to-1. The salary is whatever it is, and a bonus that's equal to the salary. Now they're even saying, maybe they'll say 2-to-1, twice the bonus of your salary, and they want to put caps on certain things, so there's a movement to sort of contain the wild payments being made to some people with money that really be better distributed. And so let me move on. I remember Will Rogers' remark. He's one of our famous comics. He said, guys who spent the same amount of money on improving their products as they do on advertising, they wouldn't have to advertise them. So now, who are the best marketers today? You'll probably recognize some of these people. Is that correct? Some of those faces you can recognize? Let me fill you in. I want to give a lot of credit to someone you wouldn't have recognized, but he's the Swedish person who started the IKEA company, the furniture company. I don't think you have IKEA here, do you? You do? What city? Oh, wonderful. IKEA is a day-long experience buying furniture, and then you go in and you go to their restaurant and you have their Swedish meatballs, and then you take your children and you put them in a daycare center. But the main thing is the price of good furniture coming down, because everything's collapsible furniture. It's designed so it could be rebuilt when it's bought back in the home, which means you're not shipping air. You're not shipping a table already set up in a big box. You're just shipping the components of the table. But in any case, it was brilliant. Richard Branson, always a genius. 120 companies. Read any of his books. You'll learn how a real creative marketer thinks. Walt Disney, having created family fun entertainment, really. Herb Kelleher, who was the first to really create an airline that's a low-cost airline. Now we have a number of them, Jet, Blue, and all kinds of others. But it's the most profitable airline. Anita Roddick, the late Anita Roddick, who started the Body Shop. The first time we began to see a company or a retailer products, very authentic products that met the claims, but also wanted in the store to get you to be helping with the homeless, saving the whales. So she made it a kind of a social activist approach. She actually felt retailers should also represent purposes and values. And we call that values marketing. And it's on the increase. That it's not just value marketing. Value marketing is that you're offering a superior offer. It has more value. Values marketing is you're the kind of company that cares. You have a set of values. It's sort of corporate social responsibility, and so on. And then you've got Bill Gates, all of you know about him, and Steve Jobs, and Jeff Bezos is the person who started Amazon, first books, and now everything can be bought at Amazon. So I would say these are my choices of the most creative marketers. I use a diagram in my Marketing 3.0 book, which briefly does this. Every company has to spell out their mission, their vision, and their values. And every company has to appeal to something. They can appeal to your mind, or your heart, or your spirit. Now, if you take the first column, mind, a 1.0 company is going to deliver satisfaction, hoping to be profitable, and saying that it is better than its competitors. Maybe not different, but at least they're better. So that is called Marketing 1.0, and you can make money as a company on that first column. It's enough. I mean, as long as they prove to you that their product performs better, and that's a mental proof. But more and more companies are saying we got to engage the customer more. We want loyal customers. So we have to emotionalize more our relationship. So we might show a baby in the commercial because people love babies, and make it's really a detergent commercial, but you have some babies and you want to keep your babies clean and all that, so you somehow turn to more emotional marketing. And now that's a 2.0, but 3.0 is still scarce. 3.0 means the company says we want to give back something because we have benefited a lot from the fact that the society has built roads, built education, educated people. We couldn't be the kind of company we are if the society hadn't been good to us, so we want to give something back. So that third column, practice some compassion, practice sustainability, where you want to keep the society going forever in terms of healthy resources and healthy products and so on. And then making a difference. Notice that you're going to do differentiation, but making a difference is a bigger. And you can illustrate a company that is in all 9 columns. This happens to be a favorite company of mine, SC Johnson. They make the products you see in the upper left, a lot of packaged products. They're very good at insect repellents, at wax products, perfume kind of products. But in any case, if you look at the 9 cells, you'll see there's evidence that they are a family-owned and a company that wants to express about the society. And I can show you other illustrations if we had the time. Now, so there's a movement toward Marketing 3.0. Let me give you a few words about a book that impressed me very much called Firms of Endearment. Any of you see that book yet or read it, Firms of Endearment? I actually should get a commission for mentioning it, and that's not my purpose, because this is written by friends of mine, and I wish I had written it first. In fact, 2 of them are from India. Raj Sisodia, and he's now he changed his university in the United States. And Jack Sheth is a very, very famous, he's one of our most honored and brilliant marketers. But notice the subtitle, How World-Class Companies Profit from What? Well, you would say profit from making good products. No, from passion and purpose. Passion and purpose. So what did they do? They did a survey, and they asked people on the street in the United States, casual surveys. They'd stop a person and say, is there any company that you really love, that you buy things from? And if the person says, I don't really love any company, but I like some, they may say, is there any disappeared? Because you've been buying from them, and if they disappeared, you'd be really sad. With those questions, guess who came up? If we had time, I would ask you to tell me what companies you care about that much. But look at the list. Amazon, Apple, Best Buy, BMW. Now, some of these may not be here. I don't know if Timberland and Patagonia, but those were 20-plus companies mentioned by people that they would truly miss. So they took these companies, and then they asked, do these companies perform better than their competitors? Now, what's your guess? Do you think companies that people love are likely to be more profitable? Okay, let's see what the actual results. These firms of endearment were highly profitable. They outperformed the market by a 9-to-1 ratio over a 10-year period. The employees were happier, the customers were more loyal, the companies were more innovative, more environmental. You know, it's a dream that these companies. Now, you might say, if they could stop there, it's already a book to read. But they said, do you think these companies have certain things in common that would define what is good companies, good practice? And yes, doing what they call factor analysis and sophisticated analysis, they found 8 things that make these companies great. So let me just read them briefly. All of these companies don't focus on the owners or the investors. They focus on the stakeholders. So more and more is you're trying to form a team that's a winning team. And on the team will be your customers, your employees, your distributors, your suppliers, those who have a stake in the business. So it's really what we call relationship marketing, not just making a sale, building up loyal, strong team feeling in your stakeholders. All of those 25 companies have a stakeholder concept instead of a shareholder concept. Second, they all pay good salaries to their top people, but nothing like the outrageous ones. In fact, one of these CEOs said, technically, I would work for $1 a year. They want to pay me $5 million, but I would have worked. I'm having so much fun with this company. I love the company. I would work for nothing. You understand, these are passionate CEOs who really care about building a great company. Third, it's easy to give ideas to your boss. The boss may have an email number, especially for the employees, the distributors, the suppliers, customers. So good ideas can come to the boss and his people. And actually, some of these companies are asking their employees to rate their superiors. You know how your supervisor rates you as an employee? Well, why can't we rate the supervisor, who may be a bad supervisor? So we're into information systems now that will give us good feedback on how we're doing. The employee compensation is higher for the people working for these companies than their competitors, and the training is longer, and the employee turnover is lower. They hire people who are passionate about customers. They view suppliers as true partners who, you don't want every year to change your suppliers just to save a penny. You know how suppliers get nervous at the end of the contract, will they use us again? But then the suppliers won't do a lot of long-term building to be the preferred supplier. Most of these companies say, I want a supplier in a 5-year contract. I want that supplier to, let's say it's an automobile company, and the supplier makes seats for new cars, the seating. And you say, I'm not going to change my seats designer every year. I'm going to have a 5-year contract because that's the best seats designer, and I don't want to lose him either. And then they believe their corporate culture is their greatest asset. And it isn't the same culture. Every company has a different culture. One culture may be like the Apple culture, very innovative. Another may be a very friendly culture. Whatever it is, everyone's living the culture of their company. In fact, people are being hired because they fit into the culture. And then finally, and this is the real payoff for us in marketing, their marketing costs are lower than their competitors. In other words, they are not winning market share by spending more on advertising. So the question is, who's doing the advertising? The customers. If you can get your customers to be excited about your products and your company, and now with the internet where you can tell your friends what you think of your companies, then you don't have to spend much on 30-second commercials. Okay, so you mean great companies. I think someone told me a book recently came out called Good Companies, from a different point of view, but maybe with a lot of overlap on this. Now, we have problems in the future. I'm going to end with these two that we have to think about. What is the relationship between marketing and jobs? And I told you, jobs depend on people buying things and spending money. But there are things happening, the slow growth of population, the automation of production, computers, robotics, 3D printing. There's a lot of technologies, and we got to figure out what the good life is going to be like when there aren't enough jobs. So how do we get to earn money and live a good life? I'm thinking of the factory that's operated by just two beings, a person and a dog. And the dog is there to wake up the person who is operating the factory. And that's the nature of robotic factories. So where are the jobs going to come from? That's one thing. And the book came out recently called The Death of Demand. And what is the relationship between marketing and demand? And is the U.S., in the U.S.'s case, experiencing demand saturation? There's some talk now about famous brands losing some of their following. Like, why should I pay that much? Now, if I just came back from Bangkok, and if you go through their airport, you see all the famous French brands, Chanel, Dior, then you see the Italian brands, and the stores are empty. Now, maybe because people don't have the money or they are saturated. But it's interesting, this responsibility of marketing to keep the society going, to create the wants, the needs, and the demand at levels that will supply jobs to enough people. So I'm going to stop here and say that I wanted to share with you just an overview of the greatness of the field and how critically important it is. I would almost say that marketing is much success than finance or just operations. And when a nation becomes market-driven and customer-driven and innovative, then it's got the real answer. Thank you very much.
Did we miss anything? We started from Adam and Eve and we ended with death of jobs, end of jobs, and death of demand and stuff like that. I don't think we missed anything at all. So now that your cerebral appetite has been vetted, we'll open the house for questions.
Hello, sir. You spoke today about old marketing and the new age marketing coming up, which is the marketing 3.0. This was also an article where you had mentioned about the paradigm shift of marketing to the network marketing lately. My question to you is, one, how do you quantify this kind of marketing, the new age marketing? And two, how do you predict the future of this in the rural market, which is the untapped market in India?
Yes. You know, most of us in marketing have neglected the rural market because in the United States we only have 3% of the people are farmers because of the productivity that's been taking place in agriculture. And by the way, the world, and it's going to even get more concentrated. In other words, urbanization is the biggest phenomenon now. So in India, I know that the early textbooks on marketing always had a chapter on agricultural marketing. That's not me because I'm not moving.
You have a mobile?
Yes, I do. If I didn't have a mobile, who would I be? Yeah, let's see. Maybe it's off, of course. Let's see. So the old books on marketing always had a chapter on agricultural marketing. Actually, in some ways, we should go back to some of that because now two things are happening in farming and rural. One is called vertical farming. Vertical farming. They're actually growing fruit and vegetables in a high-rise building. And there's a thing called, and then we're asking cities, new cities, to be designed in such a way that there's local product grown in the cities rather than, in other words, the apples are being grown right in the city. You don't have to take them from the other part of the country. And in fact, China apparently is building a whole bunch of new cities. And the job is to figure out how to design them in such a way that people live close to where they work. Because that way you're not going to have all this congestion and loss of time going from to work and so on. So we have some wonderful opportunities to create the cities of the future, or renovate the cities in such a way that they make more sense for everyone. They pollute less, and that and there's less congestion and so on and so forth. But I don't think I've answered the real point of your question. But there's a lot of work to be done in rural marketing as well. And especially since rural areas are more of a poverty issue, we need social services. We need more education and health clinics in those areas. And I appreciate your question. We'll get the next question. There's some more.
Sir?
Stand up, both of you. Stand up and your name.
I'm Sankalp. Currently, there's a lot of buzz about additive manufacturing. You also mentioned 3D printing in one of your slides.
Yeah.
So, do you think additive manufacturing is going to create some ripple effect in the marketing world, and is the marketing world ready?
Additive, and I call it robotic marketing. Is that the same thing we're talking about?
It's more like 3D printing. The stuff, you program anything and it prints into a three-dimensional object.
Are you talking about 3D printing?
Yeah.
Yeah, but 3D printing is some real good things happening. You know, every nation should try to cultivate entrepreneurs. And entrepreneurs are often creating something in their garage. But there's no way to get into a production without a factory and so on. And now 3D printing makes them, we use a word called prosumers. A prosumer is someone who's a productive consumer and actually makes some of the things he or she wants for himself or herself and for others. So the technology world is technology forces are technology and globalization. Those are changing our lives, and they are causing lifestyles to change at a very rapid rate. But regarding the future, I almost would like to see more local production by cities and so on than the kind of mass production where everything is made in a factory somewhere in the world and then it's shipped. Let me give you a new thing happening. Instead of there being a factory in Detroit that makes a car, all that factory does is it sends out the data to Los Angeles, to Chicago, where there are little factories that make the car. So that means shipping is not necessary. All you ship is the data on how to make the product. And therefore, we don't have as many trucks on the road. We don't have as many boats on the water. So there are some products that are amenable to being made as long as the data is shipped to you. And that's a form of localization of production. So we think we should move toward more localized production. Thank you.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, I see you.
Good afternoon. My name is Glenn D'Souza, and my question to you is, in today's rapidly changing business environment where competition is getting so fierce and strategies to target customers are becoming more and more common across enterprises, which one of the 7 P's of marketing, according to you, would gain maximum momentum in the near future and would enable businesses to ensure a strong foothold in the market, and why?
Okay, let me answer you with this good, interesting question. First of all, an interesting statement was recently made by Kevin Roberts that gets to your question. Kevin Roberts is the president of Saatchi & Saatchi, one of the world's largest advertising agencies. He's also the author of a book you should all read called Love Marks. Love marks, a love mark is when you love a company. It's a different version of how you get people to fall in love with a company. But Kevin Rogers recently gave us, Kevin Roberts is his name, he recently gave a talk that was very provocative. He said, because of all the changes in the world, it is the end of strategy, the end of management, and the end of marketing. He meant it in a different sense than I. Why the end of strategy? He says the world is changing so fast that no strategy can be continued. If you're going to say, this is my 5-year strategy, you better change it every year at least. Update it for 5 years, but you cannot, in a world of such rapid change, stick to something that you thought would work. In fact, don't stick too long to the strategy that worked before, because it's a new world and it won't work in the new world. Then the end of management, he was suggesting that we're moving to an age where a smart company makes every worker a self-manager. You don't need layers of management. In other words, you so carefully define what everyone's going to be doing that you don't even give titles. I was in a company in Sarasota, Florida, where I spend my winters, and it makes hydraulic components so